Gildan Media, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Miseducation of the Student Athlete: How to Fix College Sports, by Kenneth L. Shropshire and Collin D. Williams, Jr. Narrated by Campbell. Foreword. They come as 17- and 18-year-old recent high school graduates. In the two sports that generate the largest sums of money, men's basketball and football, they are overwhelmingly black and poor. Their coaches are mostly white and outrageously well compensated. Because of punitive National Collegiate Athletic Association (NCAA) policies, they are not allowed to have agents negotiate the terms of their engagement and relationships with multi-million-dollar enterprises to which they commit to live, learn, and work. Few have people to fully and honestly explain to them the extent to which they will labor. So many are the first in their families to attend college. They do not know what questions to ask when coaches seduce them and their parents with what sounds like life-changing opportunities and sure pathways to the National Football League, NFL, National Basketball Association, NBA, and other major league professional sports organizations after college. Because of this, they start their freshman year thinking they have full scholarships, 4 years of guaranteed financial support. They do not understand that coaches determine whether their scholarships are renewed from 1 year to the next, or what happens if they get injured and can no longer play. Too little information is given to them about academics, campus life outside of athletics, and the importance of participating in enriching educational experiences, for example, study abroad, internships in their fields, and collaborative research projects with faculty members. They are teenagers who do not know enough about exploitation. They just want to play the sport they love while taking advantage of a free college scholarship. By the time they realize they have been manipulated, it is too late. Many colleges and universities take advantage of the limited information that prospective students and their families have about the business of intercollegiate athletics. This phenomenon is recurrent, inescapably racialized, and gendered in particular ways. This is wrong and especially injurious to young black men who earn billions for their universities, athletic conferences, and the NCAA, a so-called non-profit. On average, football coaches in Power 5 conferences earn annual salaries of $3.26 million. Head coaches of men's basketball teams earn $2.88 million. Black men are only 16.2% of these head coaches. Also, the 5 conference commissioners earn, on average, annual salaries of $2.58 million. Each is a white man. College students, specifically black undergraduate men, for the most part, pay these men salaries. No one can reasonably argue that what student-athletes receive is a fair share of what they earn. They do not. The challenge, though, is that institutions of higher education are supposed to be hallmarks of enlightenment and learning, not professional sports organizations. But the reality is that too many athletics departments are driven by ticket sales, television contracts, alumni donations, and winning seasons that protect coaches from termination. This often occurs at the expense of academic success, personal development, and the accumulation of professional skills and experiences that poise student-athletes to compete successfully for meaningful careers and admission to top graduate schools. As Kenneth Shropshire and Collin Williams masterfully document in this important book, universities effectively miseducate student-athletes. Though a lover of intercollegiate sports, I am one of the harshest critics of the role universities play in exploiting mostly black male teams of revenue generators. To be sure, I would still care if there were fewer black men on fields and courts. I believe universities should not be in the business of exploiting any person, let alone teenagers who know very little about the economics of the enterprise. Shropshire and Williams have written a helpful, consciousness-raising book that will hopefully compel student-athletes and those who care about them to demand more appropriate remuneration for the labor from which universities, conferences, and the NCAA profit. Sean R. Harper, Ph.D., University of Southern California, Marshall School of Business, and Rossier School of Education. Preface. Can we fix college sports? That broad but daunting question sparked a conversation between the two of us that ultimately led to this book and our overarching argument. Kenneth Shropshire was finishing a career at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School. This topic had been one of many he contemplated during a career focused on how sport can make the people associated with it and the world better. Having just accepted an offer to serve as the CEO of the new Global Sport Institute at Arizona State University, he was preparing to investigate these issues even more deeply. Around the same time, an eye-opening experience revealed how much college sport had changed since his days as a scholarship student-athlete on the Stanford University football team. Ken watched his son, Sam Shropshire, strive to excel as both a student and an athlete as one of the leaders of the tennis team at Northwestern University. Doing both, being both student and athlete, was a very different proposition than it had been in the 1970s. 4 decades ago at Stanford and elsewhere, the stories of those playing at the varsity level while also pursuing a pre-med, engineering, or some other rigorous degree program were not uncommon. Today, however, student-athletes excelling in both athletics and academics seem to be much more scarce. The mindset that exists within every major sports program is that any time you are not practicing or preparing for competition, you are preparing to lose. So rather than focusing on their academic studies, student-athletes are regularly in the gym or weight room, or studying film of their plays and future opponents. Simply put, sports come first. Academics is a distant second. As closely as Ken had studied sport through the years, he found through watching his son that his perception of what student-athletes endure was antiquated. Though Sam graduated on time with a meaningful degree in hand and the opportunity to play professionally, Ken realized academic and athletic success was, sadly, no longer the norm. Rather, the women and men who achieved both in 4 or 5 years were, in a word, exceptional. Adding to Ken's wake-up call was the dissertation written by Collin Williams. Collin had just completed his doctorate in higher education at the University of Pennsylvania's Graduate School of Education, after defending a dissertation examining how high-profile athletes made sense of their college experience. Filled with interviews on this very topic, Collin's study used student-athletes' own words to explain what they endured. The 40 college football players from 28 colleges and universities across each of the Power 5 conferences shared enlightening narratives that made clear that time, or the lack thereof, is the main barrier to academic and professional success for the modern student-athlete. At the elite levels, it has become increasingly impossible to balance school and sports, much less a social life or other extracurricular activities. Both authors felt these rarely heard voices needed to reach a wider readership. The experiences and insights student-athletes shared with Collin are featured throughout. In The Miseducation of the Student-Athlete, we present our thoughts on what must be done to transform college sports and improve the student-athlete experience. We argue that in the world of collegiate athletics, while sport pays off for a select few, education can pay off for most. At a minimum, we aim to open a gateway for broader thinking by policymakers and activists on how to increase the likelihood of student-athletes succeeding both on and off the field. The discussion is particularly timely, as staggering media rights deals are pouring tons of new revenues into college sports. Understandably, this has led to a surge in public discourse on whether participants should be paid. We intervene, seeking to redirect the conversation away from paying student-athletes and to first better educating them. For reasons detailed later, we contend education is the best compensation. We focus significant attention on the leaders of college sport, often wrongly perceived to be just the National Collegiate Athletic Association, NCAA. Though the Indianapolis-based association may appear to be some monolith operating as an enterprise, the NCAA is in fact an association of member institutions. Thus, numerous stakeholders at the conference and institutional levels also bear the responsibility of change. This includes the athletes themselves. In the final chapter, we use the sports power matrix, which Ken first introduced in his book Sport Matters, to sort through the various parties and powers involved in the college sports enterprise. The inspiration for the book's title comes from Carter G. Woodson's The Miseducation of the Negro. Known as the father of black history, Woodson earned a doctorate from Harvard in 1912, becoming the second African American to do so. W.E.B. Du Bois was the first. In his landmark work, he encouraged African Americans to demand educational opportunities relevant to their culture and experiences. This is notable because, while the broad concept of miseducation is applicable to anyone, the nature of this problem is crucially important for black men, the largest demographic in revenue-generating college sports. Though the reforms we propose are aimed at improving conditions for all, this particular segment may stand to benefit most. If college sports are to be fixed, these student-athletes must overcome what Woodson refers to as backdoor thinking. If you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his action. When you determine what a man shall think, you do not have to concern yourself about what he will do. If you make a man feel that he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status, for he will seek it himself. If you make a man think that he is justly an outcast, you do not have to order him to the back door. He will go without being told. And if there is no back door, his very nature will demand one. As they begin college, students playing high-profile sports are forced to choose between school, the front door, and the lucrative careers that may come with sports, the back door. Sold the dream that sports are the best chance at a better life, they regularly choose the back door, trying to beat the odds and make it professionally. Laser-focused on athletic success, elite student-athletes make academic sacrifices they often later regret. Recognizing this way of thinking is normative among some student-athlete populations, we strive to create a system where a variety of paths to academic success lie behind whichever door an athlete initially chooses. What follows is our vision on how to get student-athletes to take advantage of the once-in-a-lifetime educational opportunity that a scholarship should present. We firmly believe it is time to rethink how we have been educating student-athletes and what they are expected to accomplish in the traditional time frame. The goal is to help as many student-athletes as possible earn meaningful degrees and establish fulfilling careers. Introduction. Writing a misguided discourse. I've had so many teammates say to me, "Hey man, I'm really disappointed. I can't believe I'm graduating with this degree and don't have any jobs lined up. I wish I had done something more along the lines of what you're doing, like accounting or something like that." Guys aren't really given the time, resources, and sometimes the option to think about what would be most valuable in terms of a degree. If the big payoff of being in college is making the most of that degree and getting lifelong benefits out of it, the greatest cost of playing football and basketball at this level is that you have to consider changing what it is you want to study. Unless you make it to the NFL or NBA, the easy undergrad degree doesn't really give you much earning potential. By the time he was a second-semester senior, John had already played 4 years of football for a highly competitive program, networked with alums to land several job shadows, and secured full-time employment after graduation. Speaking somewhat abashedly about his success, he explained that this was not the case for most of his teammates. While many would be donning their caps and gowns in a couple of months, few knew what they would be doing after they received their degrees, much less what they were good at or even interested in, besides football. When asked what led to the stark differences between him and his peers, John spoke of his upbringing and how it impacted his orientation to football in school. For starters, he was a walk-on that made the team via tryouts, which means he was admitted to college on the basis of his grades rather than his football talent. Additionally, coming from a middle-class family, John did not view sports as the way out. For sure, the scholarship he eventually received helped his college-educated parents finance his education, but football always came second to school, despite the fact that it was far more time-consuming. This message he shared was instilled at home and never escaped him. The majority of his teammates, on the other hand, were not as fortunate. For the most part, they arrived less prepared, less financially stable, and more dependent on the flawed notion that fully investing in sports was their best chance to help themselves, and by extension, their families. Almost all of the guys on the team, including John, believed they had a chance to play professionally. However, when John fell down the depth chart as a sophomore, he shifted gears to focus on improving his grades and finding internships to prepare for the real world. In his estimation, this reprioritizing was the most important decision he could have made. The rest of the guys, by contrast, came in with an NFL or bust mentality and sacrificed everything to make those dreams come true. What John found most disheartening was that his teammates did not have anyone to help them understand when it was time to reprioritize. By the time they realized, it was too late. At present, college sports lack equity. As in so many sectors of life, we are trapped in a survival-of-the-fittest mindset regarding who can achieve the most within the dual and dueling school and sport dichotomy. Though all student-athletes do not have the same capacity to achieve academic success while pursuing athletic excellence, most do have the capacity for high achievement in both if provided a more equitable framework. This framework may differ considerably from the systems that exist today, but a variety of paths are necessary to provide all student-athletes a fair chance to earn a meaningful degree and secure employment after college. That variety is what educators, policymakers, and sports insiders need to pursue. In this book, we offer you our thinking on those paths to success. Equity recognizes that student-athletes have varying capabilities and desires regarding athletic and academic success as they enter college and throughout their journey. One size, in terms of reforms, will not fit all. The system of college sports must take these students as they are, and in many cases, they currently are. What's missing, though, is the next step: providing a set of non-traditional paths to meaningful degree completion. Recognizing diversity of backgrounds and interests, this book focuses on aiding the largest number of student-athletes to achieve academic success. Today, as the revenues generated by big-time college sports continue to skyrocket, the dominant discourse surrounds whether student-athletes should be paid for play. These conversations begin at the highest level, Division I, where student-athletes garner massive publicity, foster school pride, provide entertainment, and generate billions of dollars from ticket sales, merchandise, and television rights contracts. Nevertheless, the NCAA's long judicially upheld amateurism principle prevents student-athletes from receiving any compensation beyond scholarships equal to room, board, tuition, educational fees, and the cost of attendance. These rules have recently been relaxed in the expansion of the cost of attendance category, but the fact remains that many of the student-athletes competing for some of the richest athletic departments in the country are struggling to get by. Meanwhile, coaches, athletic directors, conference officials, and other NCAA stakeholders are making incredibly lucrative salaries. In 39 of 50 states, the highest paid public employee is either a football coach or a men's basketball coach. Ironically, the contracts for coaches and other administrators are no longer filled with bonuses only for wins on the field, but now include bonuses for the academic success of their respective athletes. While coaches and athletic directors may be compensated for their players' hard work, the players themselves don't have the same right. Additionally, while the incentive to encourage the academic success of students is a good thing, an inherent problem is the sometimes opportunistic and inappropriate behavior that may be encouraged by these adults supervising young student-athletes, ranging from choosing less rigorous majors to taking sham courses. These nuanced incentives ought to be explored in greater detail. The focus remains, perhaps understandably so, on compensation for athletes. This approach, of course, is a flawed one. Not all student-athletes need the money, but all can benefit from an education that leads to a meaningful degree and employment. This is not to say that academics has not been a part of the conversation. To varying degrees, it has been. However, the pay-for-play debates have long eclipsed academic efforts focused on raising graduation rates. For example, the most widely cited works critiquing college sports, from Taylor Branch's 2011 Atlantic article, The Shame of College Sports, to Joe Nacera's 2016 book, Indentured, The Inside Story of the Rebellion Against the NCAA, pay little attention to college completion. Even less attention is given to the quality of education and the value of the degrees these athletes receive. While we have no problem with greater compensation, we maintain the worthier goal is prioritizing meaningful education. Greater compensation begins in the classroom. This book strives to provoke a paradigm shift in both what we discuss about college sports and how the existing system should be reformed to better serve student-athletes and society, to take these young people as they are and systematically provide the framework to make them academically stronger. Paying them is not the magic bullet. Even while we acknowledge the exceptional amount of time and commitment college athletes must commit to be successful in their respective sports, we contend that all who touch college sport, including the athletes themselves, should elevate the granting of degrees to at least equal status with institutional, financial, and athletic success. It is important to be clear that, as much attention will be cast in its direction in this book, this is not an issue for the NCAA to tackle alone. Using that entity as a punching bag is a dated approach to this problem. The reality is that, although it is often on the wrong end of many lawsuits and complaints, the NCAA as an organization is searching for the right path to reform as well. Redirecting that enterprise is, in fact, like redirecting the enterprise. As we assert that the reform agenda should be more concerned with academic goals than economic goals, we also place strategic focus on improving the quality of education, not just the rates at which student-athletes graduate. As Jesse Washington explained in his 2017 article, big-time college athletes should be paid with big-time educations. We should be making sure college athletes are getting real educations before we discuss paying them. We recognize that nothing is universal, and even today the degree is not the best answer for all. Yes, life can be fine, even exceptional without a college degree. The list of notable tech dropouts, musicians, and one-and-done professional athletes is legion. Key here, however, is that the group of individuals we are focused on are in college, even if only for a one-and-done year, and have the opportunity to accomplish something meaningful, even if via a non-traditional manner. Further, the data shows that those who hold college degrees are more likely to be successful and to positively impact society. We cautiously note the exceptions. As Woodson wrote in the Miseducation of the Negro back in 1933, in the schools of business administration, Negroes are trained exclusively in the psychology and economics of Wall Street and are, therefore, made to despise the opportunities to run ice wagons, push banana carts, and sell peanuts among their own people. Foreigners who have not studied economics but have studied Negroes take up this business and grow rich. Here Woodson pushes back against convention and monolithic thinking, conveying the message that a degree alone may not be the answer for a given individual or situation. In essence, one can be miseducated even with a degree. This is why counseling, a key component of our model, plays such an important role in the reform agenda. We are also flexible as to what constitutes what we refer to throughout as a meaningful degree. This is not the venue where the merits of a tech versus business versus liberal arts or any other degree are being undertaken. In fact, what constitutes meaningful varies for student-athletes as individuals in the same manner that it varies for any other students. In that sense, we do not give the epigraph to this chapter a full-throated endorsement in its literal sense, but we certainly do in terms of its message. If the investment in time is made to earn a degree, it should be a degree that delivers value to the individual, not to the school, the NCAA, or federal government graduation rate statistics. We simply add the modifier so that no one mistakes that we would be supportive of the granting of sham or other non-impactful, useless degrees. For reform to happen, as we later detail, college sports needs a constructive disruptor or disruptors with a destination and goal. With the goal of improving the quality and quantity of student-athletes' degrees, we present a manifesto. The Student-Athlete Manifesto. Parsing out reforms into 3 sections, actions, facilitators, and administration, the Student-Athlete Manifesto seeks the following. Actions. 1. Make obtaining a meaningful degree the priority, not football, basketball, or any sport. 2. Broaden the pathway to meaningful degree completion by granting athletes the right to return to complete the degree, including one-and-done athletes. Facilitators. 3. Mandate academic boot camps for entering student athletes and professional boot camps for exiting student athletes. 4. Make maximum use of summers for educational and professional development. 5. Expand the opportunity to get credits from institutions offering online opportunities. 6. Provide personalized counseling on the best paths among academic and career options. Administration. 7. Review and enforce existing limits on hours of sports participation. 8. Enhance but more closely monitor tutoring support. 9. Make sure athletes are the ones actually doing the academic work. 10. More stringently prohibit athlete-only or athlete-dominant courses. 11. Standardize a way to more accurately track all graduation rates. 12. Establish independently administered pre- and post-tests to truly measure learning. 13. Increase accountability by requiring the NCAA to routinely report this data disaggregated by race, sex, sport, division, and particular subsets of institutions within a division, that is, the Power 5 conferences. The book's roadmap. The goal of our book is to guide the listener through our manifesto and contemplate the disruptive forces that can bring about change in college sports. Chapter 1, Money and College Sports, outlines the relevant elements of the amateurism journey and the increased infusion of cash via media rights deals that have changed the college sports landscape and created immense tension between athletic and academic priorities. We want the listener to be clear on the changing economics that have set the stage for the massive change that is underway. Chapter 2, The Miseducation of the...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?